Hello, Ben. Tonight I want to ask you about emotionalism and in particular fear. I believe in freedom, and I believe fear is the antithesis and can be compared to a panopticon of the mind. For example, my father, Barry Neufeld, has taken a stand against Soji 123, and rather than debate his stance rationally, the BC Teachers Federation and Canadian Union of Public Employees have opted for the fast track to Section 318, Hate Speech Code, and sue him into silence. A move I believe is motivated by fear and goes far beyond casual conversation. What can individuals and communities do to combat creeping emotionalism and restore conscientious reason to discourse in this country?
Well, I mean, I think that the first thing that has to be done is there does have to be a mass movement against the use of the government gun to silence people that you don't like talking to. Okay, that has to stop. And it's why I opened the speech by ripping into the BC Human Rights Code. I don't like hateful speech any more than anybody else does, but I am not willing to give the government the power to shut down speech that I find offensive or hateful simply because I don't like it. The other thing we have to do is we have to acknowledge, look, speech is linked with action, otherwise no one would care what anybody else had to say. But to equate speech with violence, which is really what so many members of the left have done these days, if I make an argument, that means that you now have to go running to the sexual assault center because somehow I've assaulted you. It's nonsense, and it's counterproductive, and it leads specifically to the argument that because my speech is violence, you can use violence to silence my speech. Speech and violence are completely different. And unless you are openly inciting violence against somebody, your speech ought to be legal.
Last night you mentioned the Cartesian duality, and that piqued my interest, and it has me thinking, how much do you think this is a problem? How much do you think that's linked to actual mental illness?
So I mean, the argument that I was making last night, I spoke last night at Vancouver Hebrew Academy, and I was talking about, somebody asked a question about transgenderism, even though the speech was about anti-Semitism, and I was talking about this bizarre idea that you have a female mind inside of a male body. And I suggested that this was a kind of reversion to Cartesian duality, this idea of the ghost in the machine, that your mind exists separate from your body, and that your body has nothing to do with your mind, and your genetics and your brain workings have nothing to do with who you are as a person, and therefore, you can create weird TV shows about people switching minds. Everything is Freaky Friday. And it seems to me that a lot of what is being argued right now, which is that the mind is completely separate from the body, and therefore all you have to do is change the body to meet what the mind wants it to be, is rooted in certain illogical precepts about what biology is and what reality is. And again, it's gut-churning to talk about these sorts of topics publicly, particularly when you're hurting people's feelings. Like, I actually, as much as I don't care about people's feelings, I actually kind of do. Like, I don't spend a lot of time talking about people's feelings because I feel like people use their feelings as a way to shut down debate. But the last thing that I want to do is to have people walking out really upset about things. Right? I think that's why I prefer a society in which we all grow a thicker skin. But it is true that a movement back to a sort of nearly pagan association with subjective truth is not good for anybody, including folks who are suffering from mental disorders.